Welcome to H2K Infosys. H2K Infosys is a e-verify business based in Atlanta, Georgia, United States. We provide 100% job-oriented, instructor-led, face-to-face, true live online software training programs. It also includes access to cloud test lab with software tools. We provide live project for you to work on. We also provide assistance with mock interviews, resume preparation and review, and job placement assistance. H2K Infosys is trusted by so many students across the world. H2K Infosys provides world-class services in IT training with real-time project work for corporates and individuals, special IT training for MS students in the United States, software design, development, QA manual and automation, performance testing and maintenance, IT staff augmentation, job placement assistance, and tech support.
And here you can see that this time the form was submitting with the action currency converter. You can see the do get of currency servlet called, and the request was handled by our currency converter now, and the H1 tag has displayed onto the console, onto the page. But as of now, I'll suggest you guys to write normal class and extend the HTTP servlet and write the deployment descriptor on your own. If at all, if it was filled by the Eclipse, then you won't be able to understand what kind of parameters or what kind of mapping that you are supposed to do. Our deployment descriptor, it not only contains servlet or servlet mapping, it also consists of several other elements. We'll discuss about all the remaining elements later. Within our servlet tag, you can see that there is one another parameter, which is init parameter, which consists of a param name and param value. The init param is used for initialization purpose. If at all, if you don't want to hard code any kind of information within your servlet code. See, normally we won't prefer to write the constants within our Java file. We'll write a separate Java file or we'll read it from the properties file. If at all, if the parameters are specific to the servlet, and if you want different number of parameters or different parameters to be available for different number of servlets, then instead of writing at a different place, you have the option of specifying those parameters within your servlet tag itself. Within your servlet, you can use init param, which consists of two more child elements, param name and param value. Let us say I want name parameter and Steven. See, normally we won't specify name kind of parameters here. We'll specify some kind of constants. Just for our understanding, I'm placing the name parameter now. Currently, let us place this in our currency servlet because our front end is redirecting to this only. Currently, I have placed one initialization parameter within my servlet. So that means this initialization parameter, by looking at this itself, you'll be able to understand that this initialization parameter is only used for the servlet com.date.servlet.currency servlet. This initialization parameter, it was not at all accessible to this servlet because this was specified as servlet level parameter, and These kind of parameters are called as servlet config parameters. So once you have specified the init parameters, your container will verify each and every servlet, and if at all, if there are any initialization parameters available, your container will be going to create one more object, which is servlet config object. So along with request and response objects for each and every servlet, it will also provide one more object, which is servlet config object. And you can see that the servlet config object is same across multiple client requests, because it's just like the constant code which is available on a property file, but currently we have in web.xml file. To retrieve the servlet config object, whatever that our container has created, you can make use of a method called getServletConfig, which is available from your generic servlet. See, getServletConfig was available at the generic servlet. That means the getServletConfig was available at our user servlet as well. So the return type for getServletConfig is a servletConfig object. By using this servletConfig object, you can retrieve all the parameters. You can call the methods from servletConfig object, and you can pass the name of the parameter, and you can retrieve the value. You can pass the name of the parameter, and you can retrieve the value. So currently, at this level, I'm calling the getServletConfig method. And the getServletConfig, it returns a servletConfig object. I'm taking that in a config object. So here, config.getInit parameter of string of argument. Here I can pass whatever the name that I have specified within param name. Currently I have specified as name. The return value will be string itself. Value of config parameter.
Yes.
And within the config, yeah.
Don't you need to pass the servlet name there, because that is corresponding to only that servlet, right?
Oh yeah.
Where did we specify?
Where you are asking? I have specified within the servlet tag itself, right?
Yeah, that's fine. But when it comes to the Java class, don't we say we should say servlet name is equal to currency?
We are working with respect to currency servlet itself.
So you mean to say this one cannot be written for the date servlet? Whatever if you say get config the date, it will give an error. Yeah, if you use this one for date servlet, it will not give it. It will not return anything, right?
See, I have mentioned that whenever we are creating an object, whenever our controller has created an object for request and response, at the same time, it will create an object for servlet config as well. So the servlet config will be created based on your web.xml init parameters, which are available at the same level. So when you say get servlet config, it will retrieve the config object which has created with these parameters only.
Okay, so this will not work for date config, a date servlet.
Yep.
Okay.
So once, yeah, we have seen about getInit parameter, and also you can see that there is one other method which is getInit parameter names. So the getInit parameter names, it will retrieve all the names of init parameters that are available for your servlet. So if at all, if you don't want to pass the data, if you don't want to pass the name of the parameter, and if you want to retrieve all the names first and then query the data, you can just go ahead and use this one, and the data will be returned in terms of enumeration, and you can retrieve one by one value and query again the getInit parameter by passing the name which got retrieved from your enumeration. Let us go and execute our login HTML file one more time. Go to our currency servlet. The execution has started. DoGet method has called, and you can see that the config parameter was available, and we are able to retrieve the config parameter. If at all, if the config parameter was not available, anyway, it will return as null. But here, the name parameter was available, corresponding to our currency servlet, and you can't access the name parameter outside the currency servlet because that was specified within your servlet tag. The init parameter, it was only associated with respect to a servlet, a particular servlet, and you can't access that parameter outside your servlet. The same way it applies with respect to your Java code as well.
Krish, I have a question here, Krish.
Yeah, go ahead.
If you don't, if you don't mention the init param in the web XML, the config object won't be created, right? When the request and response objects are getting created?
If there are no parameters available.
So that init param set of statements will not be is not available in the web.xml. Can you go to the web.xml file? This init param thing, that entire thing is not there. So at that time, for currency servlet, only the request object and the response object will be created.
No, it will also create the servlet config object, but it won't set anything in that.
Okay. Okay, Krish.
Yeah.
Krish, I have another question.
So,
for the config object, what was the main purpose you said was?
For declaring the constants outside your Java file.
Okay, outside the servlet file, you mean?
Sorry?
Outside which file? Outside the servlet
Java
file?
file.
The main code?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Krish, now for this date servlet, we did not mention the init param, right?
Okay.
But still the config object will be created. What will that object contain?
I didn't understand your question.
Krish, now you told that if the init param is written in the web.xml file or not, the config object will be created for the servlet.
Okay.
So in currency servlet, we have initialized the name to Steven.
Okay.
And for date servlet, we haven't done anything like this.
Okay.
What will the config object of the date servlet hold?
It won't contain anything.
Okay. Thanks, Krish.
Yeah. The next one is ServletContext. Currently, we have discussed about the servlet configuration, which is related to a specific servlet. But let us say we want some constants that needs to be available across whole application. So in that case, anyway, you have the servlet config object, and you can declare at each and every level, and you can make it available for each and every servlet. make it available for each and every servlet. But the servlet context object, instead of declaring at each and every level, what you can do is you can declare a context object which is common across the application. That means it is available to all the servlets. So your servlet config it will be per servlet based, whereas your servlet context is per application based. Even your context parameters, they are also specified within your DD, but they won't be specified within any servlets, and they will be specified directly under your web app. The context param, and again it follows the same structure, param name and param value. Let us declare this as context param and value as some value. While loading the DD by your container will create an object called Servlet context object, and this will be available to our servlets by using a method call which is getServletContext. So this getServletContext also available from your generic servlet, which means you have the access to getServletContext also within your servlet. So if you go on here, call getServletContext, you can see that the return type is ServletContext. Import that one. Context dot get init parameter context param. Context value equal to let us go and execute or submit the form one more time. So here you can see that you are able to retrieve the information for context value. If you go and verify in date servlet, within your date servlet also, you'll be able to retrieve that information. Let us copy for config as well and also context as well. We'll see what happens with respect to our date servlet. So to work with the date servlet, from our login.html, I'm supposed to change the action. Context param is for application based. That means it is shared between all the servlets, whereas your servlet config is per servlet based, which means it is only exclusive to that servlet in which you have specified the init param. field is going to currency converter. Sometimes if the application wasn't deployed properly, then go and delete the file. Go and delete the file, restart the server, execute it one more time. Verify whether it got changed or not by using source. So this time it was date servlet. So now the request has submitted to the server. Here doGet method called value of config parameter is null because the config parameter name was not available with respect to my date servlet. I don't have any initialization parameters. But I have the context. Sorry?
What was the file you deleted?
The project, entire project itself. I have deleted the project. So here you can see that init param was not available for my servlet, but context param anyway I can access because this is for application based. Vijay, actually the reason why I have deleted is sometimes your Eclipse won't make the changes at the Tomcat level. So at that time, the Tomcat will execute the old file. So then it's your responsibility to make sure that the updated file was available at the server level.
So was it not sufficient to just to close the, I don't know, it's like a caching?
Oh yeah, kind of. Sometimes Eclipse won't work properly to deploy the application to the server. Last one, I'll complete in another 5-10 minutes. Until now, we are not bothered about what kind of parameters that we have sent from the client. But in the real world, we need the parameters, whatever the client has sent. And based on that, based on those inputs only, we want to perform the next level business logic code. So here, the data will be sent in the form of, currently I'm submitting the form by using get method. So the data will be sent as query parameters. So for our Java, those are just like the request parameters. And to retrieve the request parameters, already the container has provided you an object, which is the request object. So the request object consists of certain methods, request dot get parameter. So the request.get parameter method is used to retrieve the parameters that are sent from the request. Request.get parameter. Currently, what is the name of the parameter that was sent? So I have sent input text type text and the name is username. So that is my first parameter. So make use of that and retrieve the data, and store that in username, and the next one is password request dot get parameter of password. So the next one is input type password and the name is password. You should take a look at the name only. The name field which is bound to our request object, and whatever the name you have specified, you are supposed to query based on the particular name within your do get or do post method. Once after that, you can just print username received plus username, or else change this message to welcome user plus username. Put them in H1 font. See, currently I can directly send this particular string only back to the client. That's fine, no issues. No need to construct everything. But I want some additional things like H1. The data has to be displayed in terms of H1 font. So if at all, if I had used the HTML tags while preparing the response, then it won't display the data in that way. It will simply display the data as a normal text representation, welcome user, username. Like this it will display. Let us go and execute one more time our login page. Steve, Chris. You can see that welcome user Steve. How we got the Steve? Steve, whatever that was entered in the previous page, you are able to retrieve within your servlet, and you are able to respond back to the client or respond back to the user, specifying that welcome to the user. Username received Steve, of course password also received, and you will be able to see the password in normal text format, because server side we are supposed to process that one. There are several other methods that are available within your request object, but we'll come to know about what is meant by get attribute and when we'll use get attribute. And some other methods we can see now itself, request dot content type. Content type, it wasn't set from the client. Anyway, it's not possible for us to write that code now. So normally to retrieve the request content type, normally how we'll process is, we'll verify first of all what is the content type, and then we'll see how to process the input request. Let us say if the client has sent some audio kind of information, then we'll take a look at the content type and we'll match whether the content type is MP4 or WAV file or WMV file, and based on that we'll be going to write our business logic. And if the content type was not matched, then we are going to respond back to the client specifying that content type has not matched and you are supposed to change the format. So that's how normally content type will be used. And here with respect to context and config, your config parameter, your context. Take a look at your context object one more time. Your context object consists of another case, which is set attribute method. That means by using set attribute, you can set an argument here, let us say data access, with some value, and you can access this string in some other servlet as well. But normally this is not at all a preferred way to setting the context attributes at this level and access it at some other level. Normally this is not at all a preferable way. But for your config doesn't consist of any setter method, because config is related to your servlet itself, your own servlet, not at all required to set any kind of attributes to the servlet config object and pass it on to any other servlet, because your config object won't be available outside this location, outside your servlet. But your context object available throughout the application. That's why they have provided an access by using set attribute method. But whatever the attributes that you have set externally, you shouldn't be reading by using context.getInit parameter, and you should go by context.getAttribute method. That's why they have provided attribute method, and set attribute and get attribute are used for that purpose. Even for your request object also, the same strategy was available. You can see that get attribute was available, and also get parameter was available. Get parameter is used exclusively to read the parameters from the input request, and get attributes, we are going to discuss that one in later classes. I'm not going to send this project, but I'll suggest you guys to write 2-3 servlets or 2-3 normal classes and make them as servlets, and then configure them with the web.xml file and try to deploy the project within Tomcat and verify how your login.html has submitted to the servlet or not, and verify the context and config parameters retrieval, whether they are working properly or not, and also the request parameters retrieval to the servlet. And now you got the request parameters retrieval. So whatever the example that I have sent, make use of that and implement the data. Implement that by using the form submission like this.
Krish, I suggest we're not going to have any classes on Sunday this time, right? Because this is a lot of material we have to cover.
We will.
Oh, we will have a class on Sunday?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay. What time is it going to be? 8 o'clock?
Is this Omid?
Yeah, this is Omid.
So, you, can we start at 7 o'clock, or you're still having some other class until 8 o'clock?
I can't do this thing at 7 o'clock. I have to do it at 8 o'clock. For the next 2 Sundays, this is my situation. After that, we can have it anytime.
Okay. Okay, then we'll have a class at 8 o'clock, but from this time onwards, I'm not going to cover the regular topics. I'll cover only the additional topics like Log4j, JAXD, JMS, all those kind of stuff. So there won't be, the class will be completed.
So many of our students have given testimonials on how our training programs are. You will find them on kudzu.com and on our website H2KInfosys.com. On our website H2KInfosys.com, you will also find more detailed information on who we are, the courses that we offer, what each course covers. Also, if you're interested in a demo program, please register on our homepage on the left-hand side. Just give us more information about yourself and we will send you a link for a demo class. The demo class is absolutely free. Experience our commitment by just attending an orientation workshop at no cost. Our team of faculty and advisors are here to guide you with the right information. If you still have more questions, please feel free to call us. Call us at 770-777-1269. This is a United States number. If you're calling from the UK, call us at 020-337-17615. You can also email us at training@h2kinfosys.com or h2kinfosys@gmail.com. Thank you for watching our videos. We wish you a great career in information technology.